Hi everyone, thanks for coming. Before I forget, I don't think that Bill and I are going to read any of the weird poems, but I just wanted to tell you a little bit about them because I have prepared a small joke. So this doesn't make much sense to anyone, but the poems ended up being about a sorry shepherd, just like a shepherd that was very sorry. And we made up rules for how long the poem could be, and we were texting them back and forth in a sequence. And I just was never really a joke. Bill's manuscript is called You Troubler, YOU, and I proposed tonight that he change it to You Troubler. So it wasn't really a joke. So I'm really excited to be here. This fellowship has helped me complete a lot of poems this year. And this reading in particular has helped me really the last few weeks really pull it together, really ask myself what my manuscript's about and get the poems finished. So that has so much to do with you guys coming here. You too. Thanks for coming. But all of you guys coming here means that you put me to work, and I got to a really good place with my manuscript. So thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to me. I've been saying it's better than my birthday, because I don't even have to get you guys drinks. Thanks also to the Hugo for supporting me with this fellowship, and also to all of the other fellows in the program. I've been so inspired. I was just telling somebody a minute ago that this has been a really incredible year. We have become really good friends, and we have troubleshooted chat about things like what to do with babies so that you can get writing time, and really collaborated in a lot of ways. But beyond that nitty-gritty stuff, these people are amazing. They've gotten books published, agents garnered, amazing fellowships, really important publications done last year. So I encourage you to come to their readings too, where it's the first in 3 series of readings. So I really appreciate them. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my manuscript. It's called The Smallest Gun I Could Find. And I had this idea at the beginning of the fellowship that I wanted to write poems and also create dioramas. And I had this really great day where I walked into Brian's office because I had missed a meeting to kind of catch up, and I was talking to him about my dioramas. And they weren't very specific. I just really liked tiny things. And Brian gave me the really good advice to just focus on the poems. I'm really glad that he said that. But I made a diorama anyway. So, if you're here, I'm going to let the mystery ride for just another minute here while I tell you about what my book's about. So, the manuscript is called The Smallest Gun I Could Find, and it follows the conversation between a speaker and her homunculus. And a homunculus, it's Latin for little man, and there are a couple of ideas to consider. If anybody's done any kind of scientific or medical study, there's a different idea of the homunculus that has really big hands and really big lips. Forget about that guy. What I'm talking about is, there are 2 ideas that I've combined. In the 16th century, there's this idea of preformationism that had to do with how babies were made. And this idea said that there was just a really tiny little man in every sperm that was completely preformed, that he was everything that you were ever going to be, all in the little sperm. So then development was just a matter of growing into that body of that tiny man. And then they figured out cell development. And the homunculus is cosmetic. But then there's another way that homunculus is used, which is there's a fallacy about vision, where in order for people to understand that light comes in through the eye and the image of the world is projected on the retina, they must imagine a smaller version of themselves living in their head, watching the world as if it were a movie. So I kind of bred those 2 ideas to come up with my homunculus. And here's this. This is just like this is an antique glass head with a figurine of Herman Melville in the middle. And yeah, so I just made this thing as a model to understand. So he looks out the eyes kind of as if he's the pilot. So, anyways, poems, right? Okay. So I just wanted to extend a special thank you to Brian, wherever you are. I'm blinded, by the way. But thank you for telling me to focus on the poems. But you can take the diorama away from the girl, but you can't take the girl out of the diorama. Nice try. The poems are all, I invented a form to write in. All the poems are exactly 60 words, and there are 100 poems. I will not read them all tonight, but I will let you know when we're kind of fast forwarding and kind of tell you what's going on if you need to know. So I will start at the very beginning. The homunculus is a little man about the size of your finger that lives in your skull. He eats what you eat. He listens in on all your thoughts and makes recommendations. Today mine said, "You've got a lot of nerve." I think he's making a joke, seeing as he lives in my brain. But he's serious, that homunculus. And I have at least one scientist friend in the audience, but we just don't worry, I'll insult the science leader. I didn't notice him at first, or ever, until he started to wiggle a little in my mind. At first, I thought a headache. For weeks, I pressed in on my temples. I was a tender fruit, and then he spoke. "You awake?" He taps at me from the inside. A sense tickles that someone snuck up, and my hairs follow. I open my eyes. His voice says, "Ah, that's what I call natural light." The wall clock snaps its fingers. The pillow has acoustics to the pounding ear, and the legs are sort of famous to the bed. I begin to squirm a little. It's clear to me the homunculus has been up all night. I have my own questions. "Yoo-hoo," says God knows what. I'm being dramatic. I know what the homunculus is. I have a best guess. As I understand, the homunculus is the tiny you that is you before the body grows in. The larva before the butterfly, minus the metamorphosis. Bad example. What is the word for tiny corn, and how does it relate to the cob? So why are you a man? I ask. If you're the me before becoming, why aren't we the same? No one likes sickly narrators, my dear, he says. What? I say to the inside, I say to the outside, not knowing which to tell to shut up. That feeling of something inside wanting out, that's the homunculus. That something urge opening, a terrible itch unreachable, which is not to call the homunculus a scab, though fresh wounds do lead out. I'm going to fast forward through some conversation and sort of warming up to the idea of having something in your head and kind of occupy it up there. The homunculus goes on like this most of the morning. We carry on while I dress and brush my teeth. They come out bloody and clean. The blue sky shakes in its boots. Something must see us like ants, I know it. Past the cafe, the homunculus says, "I pity authors chalked out for quotes of the day." Yes, poor Dylan Thomas. Mid-mornings, I visit a blind man just younger than 100, relatively. We go over some stories just once, and others ride the loop a while. His mother comes out in bits. She had a goat, I wrote down once. It moaned and groaned about being alone, so she gave it all her time, he said. I don't dare laugh. After I was born, not a drop of milk is the way the story usually begins. Nobody guessed the problem. She was all dried up because she cried so much. But because his mind does this little scrambly thing between his ear and his mouth, this time he calls it her postmodern depression. We walk slow, arm in arm, like he's my bride. Some days he holds on heavier than others. His cane goes tick. I had a dream once, the blind man says. It frightened me, so I began to spread it around. People told me to ask a famous poet what it meant. Dreams always mean something. I told the man my dream. A puppet danced on stage. I think it was the rumba. The rumba. He had a rope around his neck. As he danced closer and closer to the edge, I was frightened. What is the organ that quickens the heart? He stepped off the stage and hung upside down by his ankle. The poet did not pause before giving me the meaning. Your left brain is dead. Walked off. My left brain is dead. I'm dead. The blind man says it's hard to get up early because it's so dark. For him, it is always pitch, not one morning thread of light to show the eyes open for the day. I'm tired of being blind. I cinch my lids, trying to catch a moment of empathy, but inside my eyes, his outline against the windows persists, a stain. So thanks to Bill for telling me more blind man poems. Sent him over a stack, and I think I just had one, so I've been developing that part of the book due to that submission, so thanks. So imagine flipping forward a little bit. One of the kind of mischievous things that the homunculus does is kind of whisper in the ear of the speaker this story about the town she never grew up in, which is at times has threads like her real memory, and she starts to get a little bit confused about what actually happened. He sits me down to listen to everything that I should know about the town I never grew up in. Nobody goes to church, and if you do, the scientists make fun of you. You don't want to give them any ideas. So then Sundays are free for chasing chalk outlines on the sidewalk. No, not like murder investigation. It's just the way kids play hopscotch or something like it. Bodies are safe havens and everything else is lava. Lava is this catch-all for danger, which is only relevant to you now living on a fault line. All the kids hop on Harriet because she's the biggest and makes a fine island. So wide you all can huddle together, even Harriet. While the children play, the scientists hold meetings. Every once in a while, someone gets carried away in a peal of evil laughter and upsets his rolling chair. You have to forget what you know about scientists. This group is elected by the town based on the length of their second toe, which has no correlation to raw natural intelligence. According to studies, the long second toe is an indicator for wealth, and the official term is Morton's toe. Traditionally, the right big toe means joy and the left sorrow. The homunculus goes on. The Statue of Liberty has Morton's toes. It's a valuable trait. What are you blathering on about? I say. Do you ever stop with the chatter? When I'm mad, the din of my head is so loud it seems a crowd has tickets to my tongue, and each are stamping their feet and waiting in a terrible line. They have the same conversation over and again until the words themselves get weak in the feet and decide to go home or look for another job. How could they be scientists in the toes? I feel my insides knocking around a little, agreeing with me. If all this is true, shouldn't my sorrow toe be the biggest? It is the biggest. The scientists, however skilled, have still made some important discoveries. Just last year, they developed a remedy for children who stammer, leaves the parents speechless. I just left off the end and I was like, ah. At the local watering hole, the bar is a line of Mindy's, all perfect posture, all humming, mm-hmm. I'll have what she's having is the thing to say. When Mindy 5 falls asleep as she does, her yardstick spine at odds with her heavy head, she pitches forward and all the girls say, oh, and Mindy, 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 Mindy. I stole the Mindys from a friend of mine from grad school. She wrote a poem about twin Mindys. Okay, I'm going to post a note on these two poems that says tell the story instead. The poems are not good enough yet. In this part of the book, I'm trying to write about this really great thing that my dad did. So everyone else in my family are scientists, which is kind of funny in my world. And I don't mean to make fun of the scientists in this narrative, but it's really the homunculus that's doing it, so I can't really help it. But I really want to tell this story about this thing my dad did not very long ago. He was working at tissue donation bank. They mostly facilitate, or not just donations, they mostly facilitate matching donors with recipients. And then my dad was the head of regenerative medicine, so he was like the weird scientist in the corner, like inventing new organs, growing them from stem cells and such. So anyway, he had a really big meeting coming up, and there was a really bad goose problem outside of the place, and there was goose shit everywhere, like all over the place, and people would walk through it and walk into this place and then just track feces through this place that's supposed to be a sterile environment. And I don't know why nobody else cared, but my dad's like, gotta do something about this. So he like waits for everyone to go home after work that day. It's like a really big organization. It's the biggest on the East Coast. So he waits for everybody to go home, and he has this idea. He has a big pickup truck, and he pulled the truck around, and he opened both doors to look more goose-like. And he herded all of the geese to the other side of the road, which I understand is like maybe at least 4 lanes and like a median. We got all the geese to go over there, got the place cleaned, and it was like clean for a day for the meeting. So it's like a real success story. Yeah, I think that went over much better than the films do. They're just not ready yet. They're still cooking. So at this point that I'm skipping to in the manuscript, the speaker starts to get confused between memories of the town she never grew up in and the real memories, and is sort of like otherwise beginning to get a little irritated with the homunculus. So sometimes his voice strikes me like an auctioneer's, so filling I begin to listen just for the game of when he takes a breath. I'd like to purchase a thought, but I'm shy, thinking of those deodorant commercials from the 90s where the girl raises her arm without thinking and immediately regrets it. How old-fashioned to do his bidding. I'm so nervous I chew off the end of my pen, swallow too much ink, and the homunculus says, I can't live like this. So I go to the toilet, vomit, and am cheered by my newfound kinship to squid. It's a fact. Sea creatures are really good at calming you down, but they are almost impossible to hug. So eventually, this conflict gets to the point where the homunculus decides to leave. First attempt is through the nose. And the speaker starts to get really lonely, so this is from that section. A swollen chicken turns to texture in a rotating oven. The flightless have such delicious wings. What a bother the bones, save stock we take in the afterlife. Now every chicken reminds me of my grandmother asking, a book on poultry? This dinner is no different. A joke grows in like hunger. How sweet to get to the other side. Yeah, it's just as ridiculous to my grandmother that I would be writing a book of poetry as a book on poultry. Let's go. Really. There is an algorithm for this sort of thing. One could calculate how often my shoulders lean into one another and say, let's have a little cry. And then what? That someone whispers in my head, it's time, or cues the tears himself, having spent half a day walking there and back for the water. I feel alone, like sitting in a chair without the chair, or the left leg falling asleep and feeling almost warm. I haven't got a soul, do I? Do I? Nothing answers. Oh, emotion has its little songs in the body, but was that your stomach or my stomach is a sick little game to play when you're alone. Ants don't crawl on your arm, or at least that's not how it feels. No, it's more that the ant calls attention to the skin. You think arm before ant or crawl. I haven't thought of mock turtle soup in ages. Homunculus, were you there? Who did this? I don't know how to sort my thoughts, how to think. I think if I make a mess, he might come back, eager to organize, the boss. What is it called if I want to help a little bug across the road and can't? Remember when Molly looked at all the oranges lined up for the juicer and called it death row and it was the funniest? Homeroom. Telephone numbers before cell phones. What to do with my life if the poems don't work. How to pull a shot of espresso the right way. What makes a mammal a mammal? The man on University Way that yells compulsively but only about vegetables. The difference between lay and lie. Rutabaga almighty. I'm not the type to take silverware. I'm not dead, but I am standing very still, trying to say nothing at all, using only words. Giving each loved one not more than the verbal traffic wave, that four-letter word that mirrors the four fingers lifted above the steering wheel, meaning thanks, I'm sorry, go ahead, I'll wait. I'm being polite, just look at my hands. And so I'm not going to read the very end of the manuscript because it's sort of a surprise. But towards the end of the manuscript, the homunculus does come back. And so I'm just going to read one poem from that, and then I'll be done. What do you want? I asked the homunculus. A pony. Come on. Fine. A miniature pony. Funny. I let it rest. You must want something. To help me, maybe? It's all about you, isn't it? I haven't got a thought to myself. Feel hot. Want out. Out of what? I'm the one who's in. Think how I feel. I can't.